On the morning of April 18, 1941, Henry Ford and his production chief, Charles Sorensen, walked a flat stretch of farmland near Ypsilanti, Michigan, where surveyors had just finished marking the footprint of a building that did not yet exist. The air still smelling of turned soil and spring rain, the scene as ordinary as any groundbreaking in rural Washtenaw County. Within 3 years, that same field would house the largest factory building on Earth, and the eyes of a nation would turn toward it. The strategic problem facing American planners in 1941 was stark. Britain was fighting alone against a German war machine that had already overrun most of Western Europe, and any American entry into the conflict would demand bombers in numbers no existing aircraft industry could supply, since traditional aircraft manufacturing relied on small batches of skilled craftsmen hand-fitting parts that varied from airframe to airframe, a method suited for hundreds of planes a year, not thousands. Sorensen, known throughout the automobile trade as Cast Iron Charlie for his uncompromising manner, had toured Consolidated Aircraft's plant in San Diego in January 1941 and came away convinced that the B-24 Liberator, a 4-engine heavy bomber capable of carrying 8,000 pounds bombs over ranges exceeding 2,000 miles, could be built the way Ford built automobiles, on a moving line with interchangeable parts manufactured to tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. This was the innovation at the heart of Willow Run. Not a new airplane, but a new way of making an old one. Consolidated's own design called for roughly 30,000 individual parts and 313,000 rivets per aircraft, numbers that made hand assembly a bottleneck no amount of overtime could fix. So Sorensen's engineers broke the B-24 into major subassemblies, wings, fuselage sections, tail assemblies, each built on its own line by workers who repeated a narrow set of tasks hundreds of times a day before the sections were mated on a final line that stretched, by the time the plant reached full size, nearly a mile under one roof, spanning 3.5 million square feet. The human cost of delay was measured in convoys sunk in the Atlantic and cities burning under German bombs, and by late 1942, when the plant was still struggling to match its blueprints, workers in Ypsilanti joked bitterly that Willow Run really meant Will It Run, since early output crawled to barely one bomber a day, against a workforce that would eventually number over 42,000, a third of them women recruited from farms and small towns across Michigan who had never worked in a factory and would become the public face of the war effort back home. Behind the jokes was real pressure from Washington, where the Army Air Forces needed Liberators for the bombing campaigns building over Germany and for the long overwater patrols hunting U-boats in the Atlantic. And Ford's failure to hit its targets through 1942 and into 1943 drew scrutiny from congressional investigators and doubts that the automobile industry's methods could ever translate to aircraft. The turnaround came through relentless retooling of the line itself, breaking bottlenecks one station at a time, training workers to master single repeatable operations rather than whole assemblies, and pushing subcontracted parts production out to hundreds of smaller suppliers who fed the main line on schedule. By 1944, the results were undeniable. The plant was turning out over 400 bombers a month, and at its peak that August, Willow Run achieved a rate of one completed B-24 rolling off the line every 63 minutes, a pace that meant a fully assembled 4-engine bomber, tested and ready to fly, emerged from the building roughly once an hour around the clock. Over the full run of the war, Willow Run built 8,685 B-24 Liberators outright and supplied major assemblies for thousands more built elsewhere, at a total cost that dropped from over $238,000 per aircraft early in the program to roughly $137,000 by 1944 as the line matured. Germany's aircraft industry, dispersed under Allied bombing and starved of fuel and skilled labor by the war's final years, never approached comparable output, and the imbalance in bomber production became one of the quiet, decisive factors in the air war over Europe, since every Liberator that reached a squadron in England or Italy represented a machine Germany could not match plane for plane. When the war ended in 1945, the line at Willow Run slowed and then stopped, the building itself outliving its wartime purpose by decades as it passed to Kaiser Frazer and later General Motors for automobile production. But for those 18 months in 1944, the plant stood as proof that the same methods used to put Americans behind the wheel of a Model T could put an Air Force in the sky fast enough to help win a war. An unglamorous stretch of Michigan farmland turned into one of the deciding factories of the 20th century.